I've spent way too much time thinking about this. Why saving your first $25,000 feels almost impossible, and why most Americans quit right before things start getting easier. Because what if I told you the hardest part isn't making money, it's surviving long enough financially to actually keep it. And once you understand this, it completely changes how you approach saving, discipline, and even your daily decisions. When you're starting from zero, it honestly feels like the entire system is stacked against you, and not in some dramatic way, but in a very real, everyday kind of pressure that slowly wears you down. Your income at this stage is usually just enough to get by, maybe cover your basic needs, maybe allow for a little breathing room, but not enough to create any real momentum. And at the same time, your expenses don't wait for you to improve your situation. Bills show up every single month. Rent or housing costs stay fixed. Groceries fluctuate, but never disappear. And there's always something unexpected creeping in when you least expect it. So what happens is you're constantly playing defense instead of offense, focusing on survival rather than growth. You're not thinking about investing or building wealth because, honestly, that feels like a completely different world. You're just trying to make sure everything gets paid on time so you can avoid stress, avoid penalties, avoid falling behind. And that mindset, while completely understandable, creates a kind of financial gravity that keeps pulling you back to the same place. Even when you manage to save a little, it feels fragile, like one unexpected expense could wipe it out instantly. And a lot of times, it actually does. A car repair, a medical bill, a family obligation, or even something small but unavoidable can reset your progress, making it feel like you're running in circles. And after a few cycles of this, your brain starts to expect failure before success. You begin to think, what's the point of saving if something is just going to take it away? And that thought alone can quietly kill your motivation. On top of that, your habits at this stage are usually built around immediate needs, not long-term planning. You spend based on what feels necessary in the moment, what reduces stress right now, what makes life a little easier today. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just how people operate when resources feel limited. But the problem is those habits don't naturally support saving or growth. They keep you in a reactive mode instead of a proactive one. And because you haven't yet built systems or routines that prioritize saving, every decision requires effort. Every dollar saved feels like a conscious sacrifice, and that makes consistency incredibly difficult. It's like trying to push a heavy object uphill with no momentum, where every step forward requires full effort, and the moment you stop pushing, it slides back down. There's also a psychological layer to all of this that people rarely talk about. When you're at zero or close to it, money feels emotionally heavy. It's tied to stress, pressure, and sometimes even fear. So instead of feeling like a tool for opportunity, it feels like something you're constantly trying to manage or control. That emotional weight makes it harder to think clearly, harder to plan long-term, and easier to fall into patterns that provide short-term relief. And that's why starting from zero is not just a financial challenge. It's a mental one. You're fighting your environment, your habits, and your own thought patterns all at the same time. But here's the important part that most people overlook. This phase, as difficult as it feels, is where the foundation gets built. Every small improvement, every tiny bit of awareness, every moment where you choose to save instead of spend, it all adds up in ways that aren't immediately visible. You're slowly reducing the power that these pressures have over you. You're learning how to manage your money instead of just reacting to it. And even though it feels like everything is working against you, you are, little by little, shifting the balance. It doesn't happen quickly, and it doesn't feel impressive in the moment, but it's real progress. And once enough of those small changes stack together, something begins to shift. The pressure starts to ease. The resets become less frequent, and for the first time, it feels like you're not just surviving anymore, but actually moving forward. One of the biggest reasons people struggle to keep saving is something that almost feels invisible, and that is the simple fact that small amounts of money just don't feel meaningful enough to brain. When someone manages to save their first $100 or even $500, logically they know it's progress. They know it's better than nothing. But emotionally, it doesn't register as a win. It doesn't change their lifestyle. It doesn't remove stress. And it definitely doesn't feel like they're getting closer to some big financial breakthrough. So what happens is this quiet disconnect starts forming between effort and reward. You put in effort by cutting back, by saying no to things, by being more disciplined, but the reward feels distant and almost imaginary. And honestly, that gap is where most people lose motivation, because humans are wired to respond to immediate results. If you go to the gym and see changes quickly, you stay consistent. But if nothing changes for weeks, it becomes harder to keep showing up. Money works the same way, especially in the early stages. Saving your first few $1,000s feels slow, repetitive, and almost pointless at times. Not because it actually is pointless, but because the brain doesn't see a visible transformation. You still worry about bills, you still feel limited, and your daily life looks almost exactly the same as before. So your mind starts questioning the process, asking things like, what's the point of all this? Or, is this even making a difference? And those questions slowly weaken your discipline. Then comes the dangerous part, where one small decision breaks the streak. You spend a little more than usual. You justify it by saying you've been good lately, and suddenly the progress you made feels fragile. And because that progress didn't feel strong or exciting to begin with, it's easier to let it go. This is exactly why so many people quit before reaching meaningful milestones, because they are stuck in this phase where effort is high, but emotional payoff is low. But what most people don't realize is that this phase is temporary, and it's actually building something much deeper than just money. Every small amount you save is quietly reinforcing a habit, teaching your brain a new pattern, showing you that consistency is possible. Even if it doesn't feel powerful in the moment, it is shaping your identity. You are becoming someone who saves, someone who thinks before spending, someone who delays gratification even when it's uncomfortable. And that identity shift is far more important than the actual dollar amount in the beginning.